Hey, Mike with No Problems Gaming here, and today's video will be covering a new Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 more great games worth buying, so let's get into it. The first game on today's list is Heaven Dust 2. And so Heaven Dust 2 is a survival horror game that really plays out very similar to early titles in the Resident Evil series. And so this time around, you play as Steve, a survivor of a zombie outbreak, and you wake up from a cryogenic sleep and need to escape. And so it has more of that bird's eye view playstyle. Again, similar to early titles in the Resident Evil series, but they've definitely enhanced the controls since then, so it doesn't play with tank controls, so it's a little bit easier to maneuver. But it does have that similar playstyle, where you'll need to be solving a variety of puzzles throughout the game. You'll be faced with limited inventory, you can mix different items together, upgrade your weapons, and it also has a cool aiming feature where traditionally in this type of game you'd simply aim at the enemy and hope to get a critical hit or a headshot, but this time around the longer you hold the aim button, the more accurate your shot is. So if you play it right, you can get a lot of headshots off and take out enemies quickly, but oftentimes you'll be overrun by enemies and you'll quickly go through your ammo. And you'll also need to utilize different environmental hazards to take out enemies as well. It's maybe not quite as polished as a Resident Evil title, but if you're looking to get that survival horror fix, this is definitely one worth checking out. The next game on today's list is Nightmare Reaper. And so this game is a retro Doom-inspired first-person shooter, and it also contains some different skill trees and some RPG elements to the game as well. And so the game takes place inside of a mental hospital and you're trying to find a way out and escape. But every night as you go to sleep, you're transported into this nightmarish hell dreamscape where you'll need to fight off demons, zombies, monsters, and more. And this is where that intense first-person shooter action gameplay takes place. And so throughout the game, you'll be taking on a bunch of different enemies all over the place. And as you kill enemies, you'll gain coins that you can then invest into a skill tree for your character. And there's a lot of different skills that you can unlock throughout the game, but another cool element is that when you try and unlock skills, not only do you need the coins, but you'll also need to play a little bit of a mini game sequence and be successful at it to unlock the skill. Now this can definitely switch up the pace of the gameplay throughout the game. And you do also have the feature to turn this on and off if you want a more streamlined experience, but it is another cool element, an additional feature when you're trying to level up skills for your character. And so there's also different weapon types you'll find throughout the game. So you have light ammo guns, heavy ammo guns, magic ammo, and even melee weapons, and each really play differently and are very unique. And there are many different combinations, well over 80 different weapons you'll find throughout the game, and each really feel unique as you play with them. There's a pretty extensive campaign and different chapters that you can play through, and if you try and unlock everything throughout the game and play through all the missions, you're probably looking at 30 plus hours or more. There's many secrets hidden throughout the different levels, as well as a lot of different Easter eggs. So if you're looking for a new fast-paced first-person shooter to experience, similar to classic titles from the Doom series, I think you'll enjoy this game as well. The next game on the list is Call of Juarez Gunslinger. And so this game is a unique story-focused first-person shooter set in the Wild West. The game also features some RPG mechanics and skill trees, which make the gameplay even more addicting. And so the general story of the game is that you're playing as a gunslinger Silas, as he recounts his many adventures over the years. And it's also quite a coincidence that many of his adventures feature some of the most famous gunslingers in the Wild West. And so he'll be recounting his tales and adventures in the Wild West as he shares drinks with others at a local bar. And so he'll tell his tales of encounters with Billy the Kid, Jesse James, and much more. And so it's a really fun adventure as he recounts these tales, and you really basically dive into his memories as he's retelling these stories. And so as I mentioned, the gameplay is more of a fast-paced first-person shooter. And so you'll have different weapon types that you can use, like close-range handguns, powerful shotguns, ranged weapons, and more. And each one of these gun types also has a skill tree associated with them. And so depending on how you level up your character as you defeat enemies can really alter and affect your playstyle. And so this can definitely add to the replay value of the game as well if you decide to choose a different type of character build as you progress on subsequent playthroughs of the game. The game also features a really cool dueling mode where you'll face off against enemies and bosses in a 1-to-1 shootout. And so you'll need to accurately time your draw in order to take out these enemies and survive. So if you're interested in first-person shooters, you like the Wild West and want an entertaining story with some great first-person shooter and RPG elements thrown in the mix, I think you'll like this game as well. The next game on the list is Into the Dead 2. Now this is actually one of my favorite zombie games out there. It's incredibly addicting, and it's definitely a hidden gem zombie game if you haven't played it before. Now it is based on a mobile game, but I definitely enjoy the playstyle more on the Switch compared to the mobile version. They've taken out the microtransaction elements and made it more RPG-like throughout the game. You also have the option now to reload as you're playing throughout the game, where in previous mobile versions, the only way you could reload is if you ran out of ammo and reloaded your gun at that point. So I think it gives you some more flexibility as you play through the game. It also includes all the extra DLC that came out for the game, and so it's really a total package in this Switch version. Now the gameplay itself is really a combination of an endless runner meets on-rail zombie shooter, and as I mentioned, it also has some RPG elements thrown in the mix as well. And so you're playing as a survivor during the zombie apocalypse that gets separated from his party and family as he goes on a supply run and ends up getting in a car crash, and now must make his way back to his family and his daughter on foot throughout the wilderness. And so it's a crazy adventure that gets pretty dark at times, and the story is unraveled and evolves as you clear each level throughout the game, bit by bit, as you try and reach your family. Now, as I mentioned too, it does have some RPG-like elements, and so throughout the game, there's a variety of weapon types you can choose from. You'll have handguns, shotguns, rifles, submachine guns, bow and arrows, and more. And after you clear each level, you'll unlock gold that you can then use to upgrade and power up these guns. On top of that, there's a bunch of ammo types that you can find, like explosive ammo, piercing ammo, fire ammo, and more. On top of that, you'll also gain different companions as you progress throughout the game. So you'll be able to bring a variety of dogs with you, each with their own unique abilities, things like attacking zombies, finding additional ammo, and more. There's also a variety of companion types, so you'll eventually be able to unlock things like bears, tigers, and more. Another really cool aspect to the game that I'm a huge fan of is there's a bunch of different side stories thrown into the game as well. So you'll be able to get some different perspectives of other characters in this universe, but you'll also dive into some classic series like The Night of the Living Dead and even Ghostbusters. This allows you to unlock unique items from those worlds as well, and so I definitely enjoyed strapping on a proton pack and destroying waves of zombies as I played through the game. There's an arcade mode to the game as well, which is kind of an endless run and you try and get a high score. And so there's a lot to this game. Once you beat through the main game, there's multiple endings as well, depending on what difficulty level you cleared the game with. There's individual challenges within each level as well. Things like not getting touched or destroying so many zombies or killing zombies with SMGs and doing different other tasks throughout each run. On top of that, the zombies as they appear are pretty much procedurally generated. And so even when you're playing the same level multiple times, it's a totally new experience, which keeps the gameplay incredibly addicting. Each level and run is only a minute or two as well, so you can really play in short bursts, but it's also really easy to get sucked in for hours at a time, upgrading different weapons, taking on challenges, and more. If you haven't played Into the Dead 2 yet, it's one of my favorite zombie games and I definitely recommend it. The next game on today's list is Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet. And so this is another game taking place in the Sword Art Online universe. And this time around, it takes place during the part of the anime in the world of Gun Gale Online. And so this is more of a third-person shooter MMORPG. And so you'll play as a new character that you create in this universe and go on a new adventure as kind of an alternate reality that plays alongside the events of the anime during the Gun Gale Online part. And so again, the gameplay is more of a third-person shooter, action RPG. And so there's a lot of different weapon types you'll be able to find and equip throughout the game. There's also a variety of ways that you can power up and improve your character, unlocking new abilities as you play. And as I mentioned, it is kind of an action RPG, And so you have a zoomed in attack, which really functions a lot more like a third-person shooter game where you can aim and target your enemies. But you also have a more zoomed out attack that has a target on the screen, and you can generally shoot at enemies there, but then it has a percentage chance of that you might miss the enemies, similar to regular RPGs. And so you can really play a combination of both play styles as you go throughout the game. You also have a really cool grappling hook-like ability which can send you flying around the screen, allowing you to reach the high ground and snipe out enemies, or to escape the heat of battle. There's co-op modes, player versus player modes, and much more. Eventually you do meet up with characters from the anime, and you can explore different story elements with them as well. But if you like action RPGs, third-person shooters, and are a fan of the Sword Art Online anime, I think you'll enjoy this game as well, and it's definitely worth picking up at this price. The next game on the list is 3000th Duel. And so this game is a 2D action platformer with some RPG, Metroidvania, and Souls-like elements all combined into one. And so while most Souls-like games are brutally tough, this game certainly still has that difficulty level, but it also feels fair at the same time. And so I feel like that you can get skilled enough as you start to explore and play the game, where you aren't feeling like you're dying unfairly or cheaply, like sometimes it can feel like throughout Souls-like games. And so in this game, you play as a hero that's lost all of their memories, and you're playing through this dark fantasy-like world, taking out monsters, massive bosses, and exploring the world, trying to recover your memories as you play throughout the game. There's also a massive skill grid that you can unlock, powering up your abilities and improving your skills with different weapon types. And as you kill enemies, you'll earn karma points that you can then use to upgrade and power up your character. And again, this functions similar to other Souls-like games where you kill enemies, gain that karma, but if you happen to die, you'll need to travel back to that location to recover your karma, and if you happen to die along the way, you'll lose that karma forever. So it definitely has that difficulty throughout the game. There's challenging bosses that have their own unique play styles, and so you'll really need to master their patterns if you hope to defeat them. But again, if you're looking for a new Metroidvania style Souls-like game to play, this one's worth checking out as well. The next game on today's list is Demoniaca Everlasting Night. Now I'm sure I totally butchered that name, but the gameplay is definitely better than my pronunciation, and it's a rather unique Metroidvania action RPG that combines the exploration, action platforming, and RPG elements of a Metroidvania and introduces some combat elements similar to fighting games. And so the story is more of a revenge story where demons are trying to resurrect the Tower of Babel, and in the process of doing so, they destroy a local village, and you'll play as a young woman that's the only survivor from her village as she goes on a quest of revenge to defeat these demons and stop their resurrection of the Tower of Babel. And so again, it plays out like your standard Metroidvania where you're exploring the world, defeating bosses and enemies, unlocking new abilities which allow you to reach new areas. But as I mentioned, where this game really stands out is its unique combat. And so the combat feels a lot more like a fighting game where you'll be inputting different combos, learning new moves, using special moves that you'll unlock as you progress throughout the game. And then it also has that very granular level up mechanic where you're able to increase your stats individually as you level up. And also you'll find a lot of different equipment that you can utilize throughout the game, like armor pieces, accessories, and more. The game maybe isn't quite as polished as a AAA Metroidvania, but if you like this dark art style and want to try out a cool fighting game based combat Metroidvania with RPG elements, I think you'll enjoy this game as well. The next game on today's list is Shing. And so Shing is an arcade-style beat-em-up where you'll play as a variety of different ninja warriors as they fight their way through waves and waves of enemies. And so it is an arcade-style beat-em-up as I mentioned, but it also features 1 to 4 player local co-op, and it really has kind of a unique play style where instead of button mashing, you'll be using the right joystick, and depending on which direction you flick the joystick will activate your character's attacks. So again, if you hit the joystick to the left, you'll attack to the left, right will go to the right, up will shoot a launching attack, where you can juggle enemies in the air, and much more. And so you'll be able to do these fast-paced combos with the joystick. You'll even be able to block enemies and reflect attacks back at them as well. And so it is really a cool play style. And on top of that, depending on how many players you're playing with the game, you can switch between the other warriors on the fly. And so in a single player game, for example, you'll actually play as all 4 characters at once, and you'll be able to switch to them whenever you choose. Now, it isn't just a straight beat 'em up game. There's also several different puzzles you'll find throughout the game, as well as different challenging bosses, where you'll also need to be able to utilize your environment if you hope to defeat them. The game has a really cool art style as well, and it's sort of like a 2D meets 3D art style. There's great voice acting through the game as well. A downside is it can have long loading times, but with a cool voice acting, art style, and fun gameplay, I think you'll be able to look past that if you enjoy arcade style beat 'em ups. And so if you're looking for a new beat 'em up adventure, I think this one could be worth checking out as well. The next game on today's list is Steamworld Dig 2. And so this game is another Metroidvania style action platformer RPG, and it takes place after the events of the first Steamworld Dig game, but I don't think you need to play that game to fully experience and enjoy this game, but it would definitely enhance your background knowledge of the overall settings and some of the characters you encounter throughout this game. And so again, it takes place in a small mining town as you search for Rusty, a character from the first game that has disappeared, and so you'll go on an adventure, digging into the depths, going into the mines, trying to find Rusty, and loot for treasure throughout this game. And so the previous game in the series was more procedurally generated, but this time around it has fully fledged crafted levels, and so I think that enhances the experience as you play through the game. There's several different puzzles, and it's a whole lot of fun as you upgrade your characters, finding new abilities like bombs, grappling hooks, and more. It definitely has some addicting RPG mechanics as well. And so if you're looking for a fun, quirky adventure with that additional Metroidvania RPG style gameplay, I think you'll enjoy this game as well. Alright, the final game on today's list is Ukulele. And so Ukulele is a 3D platformer similar to classic titles like Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64, and Donkey Kong 64. And so this time around, you'll play as a chameleon bat combo, Yuka and Lele, instead of the bear-bird combo like Banjo and Kazooie. But the game plays out in a very similar fashion, where you'll go on a quest to collect a magical book from an evil corporation and their evil CEO, Capital B. And so again, it's a fun, lighthearted adventure, but you'll have many different worlds you can explore, and a ton of different unlockable moves and collectibles you'll find throughout the game. And so in similar fashion, you'll be switching between the 2 characters to progress throughout the level, uncover hidden secrets, finding all these many collectibles and book pages in hopes of stopping the evil Capital B. I don't really think the game does anything revolutionary compared to classic titles in this genre, but if you're looking for another 3D platformer fix that plays like a lot of early classic titles in the 3D platforming genre, I think you'll like this game as well. But that wraps up our list of 10 new Nintendo Switch eShop games worth buying in this latest new Nintendo Switch eShop sale. And so if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. But again, if you're going to pick up any of these games or you've played them before, let us know your thoughts and comments on them in the comment section below. And if you like videos like this on video games, board games, and everything nerdy, be sure to check out one of our other videos here. And if you'd like to help support the channel, pick out content, and more, consider supporting us over on Patreon at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out, and to make sure you don't miss out on any future sale videos so you can take advantage of these great deals. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.